Hey, welcome back to the NorthWoods Church Matters podcast. I'm Matt Higgins, and coming back at you with another of our Stories podcasts, where we're interviewing some different people in the church so that you can get to know them. Tonight, I have Mr. Larry Lovelace. Larry's one of our elders in training. We've had practice for worship team, and we're tired and ready to go home, but instead, we're podcasting. So we are going the extra mile for our NorthWoods listeners tonight. We're going to get to know Larry a little bit more. And so the first question that we've got for you is, where did you grow up?
I grew up in a small town about 4.5 hours south of here called Blytheville, Arkansas. Population of about 10 to 15,000 people. So a small town by most standards. For me, it was a large town. Really, the big thing about that town, it was actually had an Air Force base there, and my family wasn't in the military. But we grew up around jets flying all the time and hearing just roaring planes from sunup to sundown.
Did that ever interest you as a kid, wanted to become a pilot, or?
Yes. However, God did not gift me with the ability for motion. So, yeah, it just wasn't something that I was going to be able to.
Air sickness and you.
Air sickness and motion is me and it know each other very well.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Good.
Absolutely.
So both you and Darren are Arkansas people.
So I have to clarify that.
Okay.
Yes, and I always tell people this. We are both from Arkansas, and I don't mean this in a bad way about Darren. I always joke around with him about this as well. Darren grew up in the Beverly Hills side of Arkansas.
I had no idea.
Yes, he grew up in the mountains and the beautiful hills and where all the quote-unquote rich people live. We grew up in the actual far eastern part of Arkansas. It's the Delta area, a lot of farmland, cotton, Mississippi River, very famous for mosquitoes there. That's the state bird in that area. So we are from Arkansas, and I'm proud of that. It's great to have another Arkansan here in church with me, but he's on the Beverly Hills side.
Yeah, you can argue about which side of the state wore shoes and which didn't.
We did wear shoes, so that is a positive thing.
All right, so what do you remember from your childhood?
Yeah, growing up, Mom and Dad were awesome parents. We didn't have a lot. Of course, I didn't have anything. I was a kid, but Mom and Dad didn't have a lot, and they worked hard, but provided a fantastic household for me and my brother. Some things that I really remember growing up is just playing outside from the time the sun came up to the sun went down, when we weren't in school. Just having friends over, going over friends' houses, and that's just some really great memories of my childhood that I have.
Yeah, so y'all played outdoors and not indoors.
Indoors was not really a thing. And honestly, I know some parents force their kids to go outside, but I don't really remember Mom and Dad ever doing that. Maybe they did. I don't know.
Yeah.
But for us, it was just always cool to go outside. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was great.
Yeah, we enjoyed going outside.
Absolutely.
Inside was a punishment when I was growing up.
Absolutely. Yeah. In our household, if you were inside, you were grounded probably. So,
what was your first experience with church?
So growing up in church, and that I say it like that because I really don't remember a time in my life that we weren't going to church. My earliest memories are of going to church. I know from speaking to Mom and Dad, they started attending church probably when I think they were telling me about after we were a year or two old. So obviously too young for us to remember, but we grew up in church. And the cool thing was, or one of the cool things was, it was an actual missionary Baptist church that we attended. And it was right down at the end of our street. So it was really great because we could always just walk to church each Sunday and walk back home after church was over with, which was fantastic. Another really neat thing that I remember is singing in Vacation Bible School in front of the church. The song, and we joke around about this in our small group sometime, deep and wide, there's a fountain growing deep and wide, and then wide and deep, there's...
And Larry's doing the hand motion, so you can't see that. Yeah,
thank goodness you can't see, because it's really bad. But anyway, so yeah, just really fond memories of growing up in church and Mom and Dad providing just a really good example for us.
Great. What were you like as a teenager?
Oh boy. First of all, I was what you call a good kid. And if my mom and dad were sitting here, they would tell you the same thing, I think. I don't really ever remember giving them any problems, but I had quite a few friends in high school, and I wasn't the most popular kid, but I was in with the in crowd, so to speak. I was still kind of a dork in my mind, looking back at some high school photos and everything like that. It was funny. My daughter sent me, I don't know how she got it, but she sent me a picture not too long ago of me at my high school prom, and I was wearing this hideous white tuxedo with these huge sunglasses on with a cane with my legs stuck up in the air. I don't remember it at all, but She was like, Dad, you were really on it that night.
Wow.
Embarrassing and dorkish, I guess. Just dorkish.
The white suit is a choice, man.
You got to go bold.
You got to go bold when you're that age.
Absolutely.
With the sunglasses and the cane.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. You almost look like Mr. Peanut.
Thank you for reminding me of that. So it fits into my dork persona. But anyway.
All right. More serious question. So how did you come into a relationship with Jesus?
Obviously, like I said, we were growing up in church, and there was a revival going on at church. And of course, we've had revivals there before. I was 10. It was in November of 1977. The pastor that was preaching that revival, his name was Gerald Mitchell. And this sounds silly, but growing up back then in churches, there was a lot of hellfire and brimstone messages that I remember, especially guest pastors coming in on revivals.
Especially for revival. And for those people that have never experienced a revival before, this was like intentionally like 5 days, 7 days straight of preaching in the evening. And that typically was the preaching for a revival. You had an evangelist that came in and was hellfire and brimstones and was going to scare you to heaven. Yeah.
And so I remember that night because even to this day, and this sounds so dorkish, and I'm going to get made fun of about this, but I was watching this movie before we went to church, and I still remember it. It was a cartoon version of The Hobbit.
I love that. Yeah.
And I don't remember everything about it, but what I remember of it from today, it had a lot to do with things that were not great, smog and fire, and in my mind, a hellish type picture. We go to church that night, and I still remember to this day, my dad was sitting here on my left side, and my mom was here, my brother was over here, and he started preaching, and God really just started, through the Holy Spirit, started speaking to me. It was one of those things that you hear about a lot of times in church where people stand up or they grip the pew real hard and they don't want to go up and they're fighting it and everything. I was actually doing that, we had the old bench pews.
Yeah.
And where you have your hymnal slots. And I was actually grabbing a hold of the hymnal slot. And I remember sitting there with my head bowed down and praying and talking to God. And just like, God, I don't want to go to hell. I need you to save me, Lord. I don't know what I need to do. And so I think my dad sensed something was going on because as the sermon was ending, he said, do you want to go up and have a prayer at the altar with me? And I won't cry for a second, but
that's okay.
Anyway, I said, yeah, I do. And so I went up there and I gave my heart to Jesus that night. I thank my dad for just pushing me over the edge, so to speak. Anyway, so that started my relationship with Jesus in church, got baptized shortly thereafter. Had actually quite a few people, if I remember correctly, in the church that got saved during that revival. So it was a very good revival. The church at that time was really growing and just really cool stuff as a kid.
That's awesome.
Really cool stuff. Yeah.
So how are eventually you called in to serve in the church and different ways you've been serving?
Yeah. So funny story. When I was in college, I was a vocal music major and obviously didn't end up doing anything with vocal music as a career. I obviously ended up selling hamburgers for a living, which was another story within itself. But the church that we were attending at that time, it was quite a few years ago, probably 20 plus years ago. I was singing in the choir, and the music minister had left, and they asked me if I would mind filling in for a few months until they got a new music minister. We did that for 13 years. And so I think that really allowed me to use some of the talents that God had given me, but then also it started the service mentality in my mind as well. And then as I've continued to grow closer to the Lord and continue to love people more, there's just a sense of wanting to be able to help, wanting to be able to do what I can to serve my brothers and sisters in Christ.
Good. So what are you currently learning about Jesus?
Oh, wow. So if you'd asked me a couple of weeks ago, it may have been something different. Right now, I don't really understand. I know Bobby gets up a lot of times and does the thing, and I know you can't see this on behind a microphone, but he goes when he talks about a lot of stuff. And that happens with me about Jesus a lot. But just how he was so obedient and so faithful and to God and to the will of the Father. I pray each day, I just like, God, allow me to be more like Jesus today than I was yesterday, because he's such an awesome example of how we need to be. So that's really what's going on in my mind with Jesus right now. Now, like I said, 2 weeks from now,
might be something different.
It's going to morph into something else, but it's still going to be cool about Jesus at the end of the day.
Yeah. And it changes based on what we're studying, what we're doing in our discipleship.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what's important is we're actively learning something.
Absolutely.
Because he's changing us all the time. So this is not on the question list, but who is your wife and how did you meet her?
Okay, so my wife, her name is Sevin, Sevin.
Not like the number.
Not like the number, it's close, but to me, she's perfect.
Yeah.
But anyway, so this is so corny, but it's true. I've told a few other people this in church, but my wife's sister was married to a gentleman in the Air Force. So going back to what we were talking about Blytheville a few moments ago, they were stationed there. So Sevin came over to visit her sister, and I was at McDonald's. I was a general manager at McDonald's at that point in time in my career. And she came in, and Matt, when you're working, you're just running around, especially in that business, you're just running around doing all kinds of things. And she came through the glass door. I still remember it to this day. She came through the glass door, and I just looked up real quick because you're always looking to see who's coming in. And I saw her, and I thought, oh my goodness, that woman is beautiful. I'm going to marry her. And there was like almost a little glow around her. I know that sounds corny, but it's true to me. So
angel singing moment.
in my heart, I'm sure it probably was at that time. But but anyway, she sat down to eat. And long story short, she decided to stay there with her sister for a few months. So she said, I need a job, just for a temporary job. So she actually started working at McDonald's. And that's how we began to talk a little bit. And then just one thing led to another. And she was just, honestly, she was just so much different than anyone I'd ever met before. She was just cool to talk to. I just remember staying up many hours a night, just talking. And I still look back on that with very fond memories. But anyway, we've been married for, 30 plus years now. And I still love her to death, even to this day. You'll see her some coming into the gatherings and small groups and things like that. She'll be here for Good Friday services and Easter as well.
Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, she's just a cool person.
Yeah, she's pretty fun.
She is. Absolutely.
Yeah. Can you explain your relationship with McDonald's?
Yeah, so
your second love.
And I do love the business. God blessed us
by
putting us in that. So my wife and I always say this because she's my partner in life, and in all seriousness, we walk hand in hand together in a lot of things. After I got out of college, I told my dad, I'm like, Dad, I don't want to do anything with music right now. I still need to find myself, in quotation marks. So I had worked at McDonald's during the summer, just as a summer job when I was in college, because I needed to earn money. And so I thought, I'm just going to work there for a little while and as I find myself, because I had some friends and they were like, let's run up to Banff and hike through Banff and go up to Yellowstone. We'll hike through Yellowstone. I'm like, cool, let's do it, dudes. So anyway, let me save up some money. Anyway, that never happened, but that kind of started the career. And it's just something I fell in love with, not only the people, but the customers as well. One thing led to another. I worked my way up in the system and I worked for a really good man who's still alive today. And I owe him a lot as well. But God blessed us. Back in 2010, I called my wife from Orlando, actually, when we were at a convention. I said, Sevin, I think we need to become owner-operators in the world that we were in. That was the ultimate thing. However, as I tell people too, we didn't have the money to do it at that point in time. All through our lives, we had scrimped and saved and lived well below our means. And God, over the next couple of years, God blessed us to the ability where in 2013, McDonald's awarded us our first restaurant in a little bitty town called Piggott, Arkansas.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, never heard of it. It's got one stoplight, and that's the truth. 3,000 people there. So we stayed there for about a year and a half. And then in 2015, McDonald's offered us the opportunity to come up in this area. So over the course of the next few years, we had got up to 6 restaurants. And then a couple of years ago, I started planting seeds in my wife's head that it was time to retire. We needed to do other things in life while we were still young. So we retired in 2022, in December of 22, as owner-operators and living the retired life now, but then also looking forward to what God has in store for us for, quote-unquote, the second half of our lives as well.
Awesome. How many kids do you have?
So we have one daughter. Her name is Sabrina. Her last name is Bergman. She's married. She lives out in Newburgh with her husband, Chris Bergman. Sabrina works at Deaconess Hospital in the vascular department. She's not a vascular surgeon or anything. If she ever says she wants to do surgery on you, the answer is no.
The answer is no.
Yeah,
no.
She didn't stay in a Holiday Inn like Bobby says last night. I love her to death. And our son-in-law, Chris, he's such a fantastic young man as well. So we're very blessed on that end. We did have a son many, many years ago who did pass away, but that's who our children are.
Now, you said something a little bit ago that caught my attention. Is there a McDonald's convention?
Actually, I wish everyone could go to it, to be honest with you. So every 2 years, typically it's in Orlando. Actually, this year it's going to be in Barcelona, Spain.
Oh, wow.
All the owner-operators from around the world. Here in the States, there's about 1,200 owner-operators. They all come together in one location. And it's a huge, huge deal. They set up, like, typically it's in Orlando, and they rent the whole Orange County Convention Center. I don't know if you've ever been there or not, but it's the largest convention center in the United States, and the whole thing's rented out. They set up 6 or 7 full-size McDonald's restaurants in those things with active kitchens and everything. Have all these different displays, but the cool thing that they do is, and there's about 20,000 people, that's corporate people and shareholders, board of directors, things like that. All the Wall Street folks are there as well. But they always have these cool concerts, like famous rock stars that cost millions of dollars to come in. And they do these awesome concerts throughout the days and the nights and everything like that. So it's really neat to see. I wish everyone could go to it.
Yeah, that's crazy. One of the things that always interests me is how McDonald's is different in different countries. Like in Ecuador, for dessert, they have the waiter that comes to your table for you to order.
Yeah, and that's the thing over there in the Worldwide Convention. They have areas of the world set up where you're actually able to sample some of the sweets and things like that. But then on the full-size restaurants, they serve different food from all areas of the world. It doesn't cost anything. And it sounds terrible because you do waste some, but you just walk up and it's just like you got all these different things you never even heard of before. And you're like, just give me one of everything. And so you walk away with a big tray of food looking like a porker, so to speak. And anyway, but it's so neat to experience as well. So that's why I said I wish everyone could experience that.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. We went to Barcelona a couple summers ago, and McDonald's there had like a full patisserie. And it was like, and it was good stuff.
Good stuff.
It was
Absolutely.
good stuff.
Absolutely.
I couldn't believe it. That was great. All right, so let's segue into the fun questions.
Okay.
So what is the first concert that you ever attended?
Oh, gosh.
I've been really interested in this answer.
Oh, gosh. I hate to even say this. As I said, we didn't have a lot of money. So when I got to college, still didn't have a lot of money, but they had a free concert going on one day. So I'm going to preface it with that. But it was the Bangles.
Really?
Yeah. And it was back a couple of months after their first hit, that Walk Like an Egyptian song.
Yeah.
It first came out. So we got to hear that when it was still hot and fresh and everything. But yeah, it was the Bangles.
Yeah, the Bangles were cool.
Good. I don't feel so bad now.
No, they're girls who are rock musicians.
Yeah.
I could go for that as a teenager.
Okay, good. I don't feel so bad now.
What is the worst food ever?
Beets. I love vegetables. I love fruits of all kinds. But when I was in 3rd grade, I had a teacher that made me eat some beets. And back then, I didn't eat vegetables. And to this day, if I see a beet, I get repulsed with it. So, beets.
Yeah. My daughter one summer had a garden and she grew beets. And I was thinking, maybe this is better, fresh, out of the ground. It's not.
Oh, okay.
It's not better. It's not better. Who is someone that you miss?
I got to say 3 people,
to
be honest with you. And I'll tell you the reasons why. So first, I miss my mom. Obviously, she's my mom, but she also was the one that brought us up and instilled a lot of foundational things in me and my brother. I miss my grandmother, Mayo, which is my mom's mom, because at a time in my life when I wasn't so close to God, she was that thorn in my side that wouldn't give up on me. And then I miss my grandfather, or we call him Papa Lovelace. And the reason for that is because my papa got saved later on in life. He lived till he was 94. He got saved when he was around 80. And it was so miraculous watching the change in his life, watching him come to church, just talking to him. God changed him immediately. And I miss those 3 people more than anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What profession would you like to try other than the one you currently have, which is you're retired. So you have an opportunity to do something.
So, this is going to sound weird, but I'd like to actually be a travel vlogger.
Really?
I think that would be the coolest thing because I like to travel now, obviously. And I think it would be so cool to be able to do that because I watch the travel vloggers all the time now. And I'm like, oh man, I'd love to go there. Oh man, I would love to do that. And I got to thinking about it, I thought, I can do that.
Yeah.
I could do that. So anyway, travel vlogger.
That'd be awesome.
Final answer.
I'd watch that.
Thank you.
Yeah. What do you do to relax?
Nothing weird, nothing out of the ordinary. Just I read, listen to music a lot. 2 other things, exercise, and then my wife and I, we walk and for a couple of hours a day and just talk. And I don't really get stressed out much anymore, praise God. But that's kind of what I do for that.
Cool. What is your favorite music album?
Oh, gosh.
Is it the Bangles?
It's not the Bangles. No, I would tell you if it was, but it's not. That's hard to say. I can't necessarily, there's so many albums that I can think of, but as far as like what's the favorite of all time, I'm just going to have to defer. It's probably going to be just anything in the 80s, 90s, glam, hair, grunge, metal thing. Yeah. Yeah, that's my answer. Nothing. I just liked all different types of music. So, but yeah, probably something in that genre for those eras.
Awesome. Good. What is your favorite dessert?
Ooh. Okay. So my favorite healthy dessert is just a bowl of fruit. My favorite, and I've only had this one, not the bowl of fruit. I've had more than once, but I've only had this once, but I have to say, I think it's Bananas Foster.
Oh, yeah.
I remember that my wife and I were down in New Orleans for a McDonald's convention. And anyway, so we went to eat. We asked a good restaurant to go to, and they told us this one. And I was so intrigued because this gentleman kept rolling this little cart, and he was making these Banana Fosters at the table. So I told Seven, I was like, I got to have one of those. I got to see what it's about. So he made it right in front of me, and I ate it, and it had the little syrup and stuff left over, and I felt I was just almost licking the syrup up. It was so good. Of course, there's no telling how many calories it had in it, but Bananas Foster.
Wow.
Awesome.
Yeah. If McDonald's dropped the McRib and had Bananas Foster and a patisserie, I'd go.
Oh, yeah.
I'd go.
Yeah.
I haven't been since Win Play Place.
Yes,
That's the last time that we went to McDonald's.
Yeah.
Have you went to McDonald's since you've divested yourself?
So I feel bad about saying this because if any McDonald's folks ever listen to it, I will say this. I still love McDonald's in all sincerity. I really do. It was good to us. I do miss the people. I don't miss the stress and the headaches, but I do miss the people for sure and the customers as well. But we have been into McDonald's twice in the last 16 months. Once in Iowa because we had to stop somewhere and get us something to eat when we were on our way back on a trip. And then once in Cape Girardeau, Missouri, when I had to take my dad somewhere. Yeah. So that's the only 2 times.
Yeah. The last question would be, who is your favorite McDonald's character?
Ooh. I would have to say, just because he's silly and just not shady, just running around and stuff, is the Hamburglar.
I was hoping you would say that.
Yeah. I think the Hamburglar's pretty cool.
I think Grimace is weird.
Grimace is weird.
What is even Grimace?
There's been a big controversy about that for years, and I used to know the answer to it in my younger days, but I can't remember, to be honest with you.
Oh, I'm going to have to Google that now that we're done.
But I'm sure it is on Google.
Yeah, we'll have to Google that. All right, that's everybody's mission after this podcast. Google what is Grimace.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, Larry, thanks for taking some time for us to get to know you, and we'll see you around church.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. I definitely appreciate it.
All right, thanks, Larry. Thanks for tuning in to the NorthWoods Church Matters podcast. If you'd like to find out more about NorthWoods Church, you can visit us at our website, www.northwoodschurch.org. Again, that's www.northwoodschurch.org.